That does it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Banfield starts now.
Welcome to the program. It's Monday. I'm having one of those days when, like, everything's off. I don't know about you. I'm just, like, I almost didn't make air. My hair's pretty messy. Apologies. Couple things, though. It was busy today. We were juggling a lot of things. Because just when I thought I had, like, the lead story all set, and it was kind of a twofer, then another lead story came in. So tonight, you're getting a whole bunch of lead stories. To start with, there's a threefer lead story on Diddy. There's just so much going on with him all of a sudden. Like, oh my God, there are some text messages that now kind of really narrate that terrible hotel beating video that we saw. Some text messages that we had and some new text messages that were added, and it's all about the new effort for Diddy to get out of jail. This has been silent the whole time we've seen it, and it's awful every time. This is, Cassie Ventura allegedly being beaten by Diddy. He apologized on Instagram and then, removed it. But now the text messages that follow it are just so sad. I'm going to read them for you. They're important, though, because the feds want those text messages in an answer to Diddy's effort to get out of jail for the third time. He wants bail for the third time. And they're saying, we have so many reasons why not. And he's saying, you're playing dirty. He's telling the feds they're playing dirty. Like raiding his cell, he says, taking his privileged information and communications with his lawyer. I'm going to give it all to you in a second. But then there's something else that's going on at MDC. Other inmates who've been in the same unit, 4 North, as Diddy, say that you can have freak-offs in there with the female inmates on the floor below. And there's a way. It's weird, but there's an inmate who's been there, done that, going to tell you about it in just a minute. Then I told you about the Menendez is another big lead story. I've just been waiting to find out if the Menendez brothers are going to get home for Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas. I can answer you one. No Thanksgiving. And the reason I know that is because the governor announced something tonight. It's not a yes, it's not a no, but it's certainly not a Thanksgiving. Does not mean that Christmas is out of the question. I'm going to give you the whole new metric, the whole new permutation combination of how the Menendez brothers cases are shaking out in just a hot minute. His lawyer's going to be here and he'll straighten it all out for me. And then also, this is a big anniversary for anybody 46 and older. It's a big anniversary for everybody. It's a big anniversary for you if you've ever used the term drank the Kool-Aid. That guy drank the Kool-Aid, or, oh, yeah, she's just drinking the Kool-Aid. If you don't know where that expression came from, it came from Jonestown, Guyana. It came from Jim Jones because he massacred over 900 of his church followers who were in a culty kind of setup down there by telling them all to drink a purple Kool-Aid-like drink that was laced with cyanide. This was the news 46 years ago. Take a look.
Some had pillows beneath their heads. Some died alone, separated by families until the end. Babies were fed the lethal potion with it's believed each lived about 5 minutes.
This was shattering. Like, this news that was playing in the evening newscasts was just jaw-dropping. I was 10, and I remember every second of it. I still remember the way Jim Jones, like, his head would turn and his weird glasses, and it was really, really big. And it is the 46-year anniversary today. But there is a part of the story I never knew, and I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew everything about this story because I followed it for decades. I did not know about the murders that happened after that mass murder with the cyanide. I did not know about those murders that are still unsolved, that are here, stateside. I'm going to tell you about them tonight. Can't go anywhere. You got to know about this. It's crazy. Let's start here, though. If you are still kicking yourself for not buying stock in Apple at $20 a share, I am too. Or are you angry that you said I do when you really meant I'm not sure? Because if that's true for you, you might have a glimmer of an idea of how P. Diddy feels. Sean Combs almost certainly could have avoided everything bad that's happened to him in the last year if he'd just gritted his teeth and written a $30 million check to Cassie Ventura. who at the time was said to be shopping a book around for about that price, unless Diddy bought it first. When he said no, word is Cassie sued him instead, and the details in that lawsuit went public for one full day before he settled it, and fast. But in that one full day, the feds and the rest of us got an eyeful. We got an eyeful. And we know what's happened since. Indictment, arrest, incarceration. I know what you were thinking. I thought the same thing. Throwing $30 million around, that is a lot of money, even for people like Diddy. But seeing as how he's now locked up without bail, and seeing as how he's selling his LA mansion for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and seeing as how he's begging the federal courts to let him out of jail on a $50 million bail package, 30 mil? Oh, that would have been a bargain. All of this 1 year ago Saturday. It all happened a year ago from Saturday. And that brings me back to the bail question, because Diddy is trying once again to get out of the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And the feds are going back to that sickening hotel video from 2016 to stop him in his tracks again. I know you've seen the silent video, but now we have the texts that put some context to that unholy beating. Diddy texted an unspecified person and says, "Call me. The cops are here. I got 6 kids. Yo, please call. I'm surrounded. You gonna abandon me all alone?" Question mark. Which the feds say proves that Diddy knew that this was no lover's quarrel. Later, Cassie texts Diddy, quote, "I have a black eye and fat lip. You are sick for thinking it's okay to do what you've done. I still have crazy bruising. I turn my head for a second and you get effed up and you drag me down the hall by my hair. I have bleeding cuts. You hit me in the head 2 good times. When you get effed up the wrong way, you always want to show me that you have the power and you knock me around. I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child." Wow. As bad as that beating was, it's not the main reason the government wants to keep Diddy locked up while he waits to go to trial. The feds say even in lockup, Diddy is doing everything he can to tamper with witnesses, like Cassie maybe, and taint the jury pool too. They say that as soon as he settled in at the MDC, he began using phone accounts of at least 8 other inmates to call people who are not on his, quote, approved contact list. The feds say that he routinely orders family members and lawyers to loop in other parties via 3-way calling, which is not allowed. And that he, quote, enlisted family members to plan and execute a social media campaign around the defendant's birthday, including this Instagram that was posted by his kids.
Happy birthday to Daddy. Yay!
I love y'all so much.
We love you too.
Love you, Pastor.
I can't wait to see y'all.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see y'all. And I just want to say I'm proud of y'all, especially the girls. I mean, all of y'all, but just for being strong.
But Team Diddy says that it's the government, actually, that's breaking the rules. They say that the feds raided Diddy's cell last month and then seized a bunch of privileged materials from the cell, including handwritten notes to his lawyers. The prosecutors say that's not true. They say that they took photos of files on Diddy's bunk, but that they didn't seize anything. They also say that he did have a folder that was marked legal, but they claim they did not photograph that folder. They also say that the photos they did take, they gave to a so-called filter team that redacted anything potentially privileged. The defense is demanding an emergency hearing regardless, so this is the time that I bring in my experts. Nima Rahmani is a former federal prosecutor, and he's president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. And Mark Garagos is a legendary defense attorney who once represented Sean Combs. He's also co-host of the Reasonable Doubt podcast with Adam Carolla. All right, Garagos, I'm going to start with you. This feels like it's all-out war, well before trial, and I'm wondering what you make of all of this back and forth.
Well, actually, there's a lot that went on today. Part of what the government filed
was a admission, if you will, and I'll call it an admission, that they had seized materials from his cell during what they call a pre-planned raid. The problem with that is that they kind of buried in a footnote the fact that they were arguably privileged materials, which prompted the defense to file a letter this morning asking the judge for an immediate hearing and arguing that it was outrageous government misconduct. The prosecutor immediately was ordered by the judge today, this morning after that letter, to file a response by 5 o'clock and set a hearing. The judge set a hearing for tomorrow at 3 Eastern. The prosecutor filed their response at 5 o'clock, and I read it at 5, and I will tell you that it was not what I expected. It basically conceded that they did invade the attorney-client privilege. So they're now hoisted between a rock and a hard place, basically arguing he shouldn't get out of on bail because he can prepare for trial and review the billion terabytes of information while in custody, at the same time saying, well, we're going to execute a search warrant on his cell, and there's an investigator there, and we're going to seize materials, and we're not going to run it through the taint team. I think they've got a lot of questions, or the judge is going to have a lot of questions tomorrow at 3 o'clock, so I would stay tuned. The prosecutors may have bitten off a little bit more than they can chew.
So, Nima, jump in here because I'm always interested in a taint team. I hate that word, but okay, we know what it means in this perspective. It means you will seize materials and a special group that is disassociated with the prosecutors look through everything to make sure it's not privileged. I would just assume that all raids of a cell have some kind of taint filter to make sure that you're not taking letters to the lawyer. Why would that not have been the case in Diddy's raid?
It was the case, and the defense has raised all sorts of arguments saying that there's a Fourth Amendment violation here. But we know there's no reasonable expectation of privacy when you are an inmate. Guards can go in there, toss the cell for any reason or no reason at all. You don't need a warrant. You don't need probable cause. And prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, they know what they're doing. You always use a team to make sure that you don't use agents who might accidentally see something that may disqualify the agents and the lawyers who are actually working on the case. And that's exactly what they did here. So I think this is much ado about nothing. We know the defense is always trying to go on the offense, and to argue that the government is doing things that are outrageous. I think Judge Subramanian is going to see right through this and reject this motion outright because, again, the real person that's violating the law here is Diddy because he's abusing the phone system. He's doing three-way calls. He's trying to obstruct justice. He's trying to tamper with witnesses. And I think it's just a matter of time before he gets hit with a superseding indictment because of everything he's doing.
So that's interesting.
You know,
Mark, the phone system, right? The phone system's easy to check, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'll invite you to save the tape on this because the prosecutors did an interesting move today. They asked that there was no evidentiary hearing. Last I looked at Pacer, that evidentiary hearing is still on for 3 o'clock. I would say save the tape because I don't think that the district court is going to dispense with this so handily. If you read the letter that the prosecutors filed today, it's a very disturbing kind of a recitation of what they did. Nobody is saying that they don't have the right to go into a cell. What they are saying and what they admitted is that they had an investigator present, and that investigator saw attorney-client materials, and somehow those materials made it into the hands of the trial team. So, like I said, save the tape and let's replay it tomorrow, Ashleigh.
Let me ask you this, Nima, jump in. If somebody accidentally gets eyes on something, there's something called fruit of the poisonous tree, right? You can't just say, ooh, I see a name, that's handy, I'll go and subpoena that name, because eventually at trial, that will be suppressed based on the fact that it's the fruit of a poisonous look-see. Isn't that something that can be remedied in this case?
Absolutely. We know the attorney-client privilege is the most sacred privilege under the law. I mean, period. So if prosecutors were stupid enough to actually send in agents to go through that material and they have access to attorney-client privilege material, That's a huge problem. I agree with Mark. But the defense here, they've said all sorts of things. They've accused the government of intentionally leaking that video of Cassie Ventura that we talked about. Well, we know that CNN got it, and that Diddy is the one who actually paid $50,000 to make it go away. So maybe this is a former prosecutor in me, and maybe I'm giving U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, the most prestigious office in the country, more credit than they're owed. But I don't think that they would make a mistake that is this stupid, because it would be incredibly stupid if they actually did this and didn't use the taint team.
Let me switch gears back to the phone calls, Mark, and that is that, like, let's just say if Diddy was using other inmates' accounts to make phone calls to parties he's not allowed to contact, that's super simple. I mean, that's not a treasure hunt. That's all there. Everything is recorded at the MDC, as is in every jail, and all that can be proven right away, correct? Is that a save the tape moment?
Correct, but let me just tell you something. I don't know of anybody who has ever defended a federal criminal case or even a state criminal case who would tell you that inmates and using the phones isn't how do you think cell phones get into the prisons? How do you think these phones get swapped around and everything else? This is the currency of the prison system. And frankly, you have to wonder at a certain point, why is it that somebody who's not been adjudicated, their guilt or innocence hasn't been adjudicated, why is it that they can't make phone calls? Why is it they can't talk to their family? And by the way, if he orchestrated a birthday celebration on social media, it certainly pales in comparison to the kind of campaign that's been waged by law enforcement against Diddy to taint the jury pool. So given what's going on, and by the way, the U.S. Supreme Court has said in unmistakable terms in a case called Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada that the defense has an absolute right to counter things that are done by law enforcement. So it's not only something that does happen, it should be.
You bring up a good point. There is a massive anti-Diddy campaign going on right now. Whether it's his fault or not remains to be seen. But, you know, the fact that he asked his kids to put out the happy birthday video, I get it. That makes sense. But if he's contacting people he's not allowed to contact, that'll be, I got to wrap it there. But, Mark, you're not going anywhere. I've got questions for you about this Menendez story, which just sort of, bang, came out of nowhere. So I'm going to say thank you to Nima Rahmani and ask Mark Garagos to stand by because as we continue our coverage on P. Diddy, you might be able to use a new name for him now, Peep Diddy. It turns out there is a way to continue the free cops at Metropolitan Detention Center in New York, but it's a bit of a twist. When we come back, a former inmate of 4 North was in the same segregated block where Diddy is housed, and he lets us in on a secret. The way the male inmates get their jollies with the female inmates downstairs. That's coming up next. Of the past 25 years, like chilling with your boys, your music and your money, personal chefs, private jets, fun pills on demand, and no shortage of female attention. It's the life of Diddy. Was the life of Diddy, kind of ancient history now. But tonight, Diddy's infamous freak-offs are now a party of one deep inside Unit 4 North in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. That said, according to our sources, Diddy is not being housed in a solitary cell. And what's more surprising, the sources say he can still get his freak on, so to speak. There is apparently a secret system that inmates on the block all seem to know about, a way to spy on the female inmates who are housed 1 floor below them, even chat them up and do other things. I'm joined now by someone who has seen it all firsthand. Gene Borrello was a resident of Unit 4 North. He's a former organized crime associate who spent a total of 13 years behind bars, including a stint at MDC. Gene, thanks so much for being on. I have to say, when I heard this, I was sort of like super shocked. I thought there's no way there could be some way to contact the ladies down below, but tell me how it works.
So basically, it's a dormitory Puff Daddy's in. He's not in cells. So there's a big dorm with a bunch of bunks, and then there's a little room where you go into, and it's like a workout area. But it's not really a yard, you would say. It's just like with gates, like you see right there in the building. And you could literally lay down and the females are right below you, and you could just yell at them and they yell back, and basically like you could kind of see them and they could see you a little bit, but you have to watch out for the guards, obviously. But you can talk with them and, you know, show each other some things sometimes, which I never did any of that.
Of course not, Gene. I'm actually trying to figure it out. Like, you lie down on the floor. Is it like a grate? Is there a grate on the floor? Are there cracks or holes in the floor down to the floor below? Or what is it you're looking through?
No. So it's the gates, basically. There's holes in the gates. You can see through them. That's your yard, basically. You have no sun. You have basically just these gates, and basically the girls are right there below you, and you just could look at each other, basically, like through the gates. And you could speak to them, obviously.
And you can speak to them. So do and the girls know that they're, like, can the girls see the men as well? Can the women see the men and the men see the girls at the same time?
Yeah. Yes.
So are they like some business going on there between them?
I mean, yeah, they have relationships. I think it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, they're actually like dating each other. It's just really funny. But, you know, I was a short timer and I was there for 8 months. I was on a probation violation, so I wasn't really like doing that. But we'd have to look out for them because we're in the room with the door shut and they got to scream a little bit to talk to each other. So we got to let them know, hey, the guard's walking, get up. You know what I mean? So it's like a whole system they have set up.
Do the guards know about this?
I mean, if they catch you, they'll tell you, get up, get over there. We know what you're doing. Get out of the room, you know?
Do you get into trouble for it? Like, what would happen if the lookout maybe didn't get to the guy in time and he was caught having his conversation or his business with his lady friend?
It depends, because you could fish things as well through there. So, like notes and things like that. So if they catch you fishing, you're going to get a ticket. But if not, they'll just tell you to get up. And if you get the wrong cop, like a high rank, they might give you a ticket or a shot or something like that. But usually they just tell you to get out the room.
So you can actually send kites, those little prison notes, through to the ladies below?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Can they get notes up to you? Is it just as easy for them to get a note up to you through the grate?
You can make a lot of gadgets in prison. I've seen it all. Yes.
This is like so crazy. Okay, so the allegations against Diddy are that he's surrounded himself at these freak-off parties with some very, very beautiful women and men and lots of fancy things. And I'm imagining it's not quite the same in this setup.
No, definitely not. I mean, definitely not his type. I don't see him getting involved in that.
So, would all of the female inmates be involved in that, or just some of them?
Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, a lot of them are serving time down there. Waiting to go to jail for somewhat years, and they do that. You know, they try to get the men to take care of them, send them commissary money, things like that.
How do they? So, can they actually see their faces and develop a real relationship, or are you sort of looking through a grate and wondering who is that I'm talking to?
Yeah, exactly. But they try to send pictures like through the mail, so like you. If you hook up, if you meet this girl there, they'll try to like get your information and have their family send pictures, you know what I mean, to you. So now you'll see what she really looks like, you know? Yeah, it's a whole system.
I don't even know. This sounds like crazy. I can't even imagine. How do they even know who it is they want to send the picture to?
Yeah, it's
there must be quite a vast.
Yeah, it's a whole operation, but you definitely have full-blown relationships in there, yes.
Crazy. And so the other thing that we've been hearing is that he's in the same unit as Sam Bankman-Fried. What are you hearing about that? Do you keep up with anybody? Do you know what the situation is in that 4 North?
I was with Sam Bankman as well. I got in trouble for Sam. A guy was picking on him, and I actually went to the hole for Sam Bankman. A guy was trying to bother him for money, and I actually beat the guy up from. Yeah, and I went to the box for that for like 90 days. Yeah.
Wow. So what was the guy trying to do to Sam, and why?
He was trying to get $1,000 out of him, and I kept on telling Sam, this is a safe place. This is an environment where it's not like that. You know, this guy was just trying to intimidate him a little bit and make him like, oh, this is a dangerous place. It's not a dangerous place. 4 North is a picnic. There's nothing going on there. You can walk around with your sandals on. You know, you have no worries. No one's getting stabbed or jumped or cut. That's on the other side. You know, you're in a safe place. And they were trying to make it like it's not safe. Yes.
Sam may have known nothing about this world. Diddy sings about it, celebrates it. His art is almost about this world. I almost feel like Diddy knows a heck of a lot more than Sam. Do you think anybody's going to try and shake Diddy down or make a name coming after Diddy?
if he's not in 4 North, they don't care about who Diddy is. R. Kelly was in there and he was getting beat up in the regular side. So they don't really care about who you are. They go by your crime. And according to the real population of prison, he has crime on women. So that's not accepted anywhere. So he would have a problem anywhere he goes besides the 4 North, because they don't like the rape cases and the, allegations against him. They're not really going to be okay with that in population, or he'll have to pay his way, for protection in the regular side.
To be clear, he's not, for what we know, he's not in Pop, he's in 4 North, and you're saying he's okay in 4 North? He's not okay in 4 North?
He will be fine in 4 North. He will not be okay on the other side of MDC Brooklyn. Right.
I could talk to you all day. I'm going to have you back. Will you make yourself available every single time I call?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll send you a little note.
Right.
Thanks, Gene.
All right, take care.
Good to talk to you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
That's Gene Borrello. And by the way, I did mean I could talk to Gene forever and ever, but you could actually read a lot more about him, because this book was written about him. It's called Born into the Life, the story of an ex-Bonanno family mafia enforcer. The book's available everywhere. Thanks again, Gene. Appreciate it. All right. Coming up, I promised you this story at the top of the show. The Menendez brothers. They get their answer if they're going to make it home for Thanksgiving. California governor just weighed in and made December 11th must-see TV. Going to explain it next. Breaking news on the Menendez front. The California governor, Gavin Newsom, has just made his first public statement on Lyle and Eric's clemency bid. It's not so much a decision as a non-decision, essentially. It's kind of a punt. I have the exact quote from Newsom's office. Here it is. Governor respects the role of the district attorney in ensuring justice is served and recognizes that voters have entrusted District Attorney-elect Nathan Hochman to carry out this responsibility. The governor will defer to the DA-elect's review and analysis of the Menendez case prior to making any clemency decisions. End of quote. The DA-elect, Mr. Hochman, then put out his own statement, which reads in part, "Once I take office on December 3rd, I look forward to putting in the hard work to thoroughly review the facts and the law of the Menendez case, including reviewing the confidential prison files, the transcripts of the 2 trials, and the voluminous exhibits, as well as speaking with the prosecutors, defense attorneys, and victims' family members." That said, there are still 3 potential pathways to freedom for the brothers. There's a habeas corpus petition to the courts in light of new evidence. There's that change of conviction, right? That effort from murder to manslaughter, and what may be the most likely option, a resentencing. There's a hearing on those last 2, right? The change in conviction and the resentencing. That's set for December 11th. That is 8 days after Mr. Hochman takes over. And if it goes ahead, looks like maybe the brothers, they might actually be immediately eligible for parole. Now, parole actually could take months to work its way through the system while they remain behind bars, or they could be sprung right away. Because if it's a resentence, manslaughter, they have served way more than the sentence for manslaughter. So home for Thanksgiving, no, that's out of the question. But home for Christmas, that's still on the table. Who better to bring into this discussion than Lyle and Eric's attorney, Mark Garagos? When the news broke sort of late this evening, I thought of you right away because we had you on the show to talk about Diddy. What was your reaction to the governor's, I guess he punted, his decision to punt on clemency right away?
Well, I don't know that I was surprised. The governor is going to do what the governor is going to do. I mean, normally, if you listen to some of the statements he's made before, he does this every year, evaluates commutations and pardons around Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have a hearing this Monday, actually, before the December 11th for a status conference in front of Judge Jessic. And it'll be interesting to see what takes place at that hearing, because George Gascon is still the DA. And I think if you read between the lines, the governor is implying that he's going to defer to the next DA's attempt to do the analysis. I would just state I've looked at the entire C-file with the exception of what's confidential. The DAs have already and the DA's office has already looked through the C files. They've done a voluminous examination. They've filed 600 and some odd pages with the court, a 57-page memo. And by the way, 24 out of 25 of the victims' family members have said it's more than enough time. The thing that really affects me personally in this is that both Joan, who is Kitty's older sister, turns 93 next week on the 26th, and Terry, who is Jose's older sister, is now 85. Both have their health and age challenges. Both want them out. Both have waited almost 35 years for them to get out. They really, the brothers should be out for the holidays with these two women. I mean, it's a rare case, if ever, that you see both of the aunts.
Yeah, it's both the aunts, the uncle's still against. But Monday's status hearing, is it just a status hearing, or might something actually happen Monday?
I think something could happen on Monday. I don't imagine there'd be any decision, but things could happen on Monday. So I would say stay tuned. And no, I'm not going to book on Monday night.
Why? You knew that was my next question. You have to. Please? Pretty please? Which I always text you, pretty please? Monday. Let's make a plan.
I'll set you up. I'll set you up with the ex-prisoner who was on the previous segment.
Yeah, that was an excellent segment. I enjoyed that. But I do want to talk to you about that because I think that the time is definitely ticking down, and I can foresee a circumstance where they would be home for Christmas, and I would like to talk to you about that. I will call you Monday, and I will also keep checking in with you about whatever else we might hear before or even after that date. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you staying up late for us.
Thank you, Ashleigh, always.
This is very late for Mark. I just want to let you all know. He goes to bed very early, so when he's on the show, I owe him big time. Okay, coming up next. If you are anywhere near my age, probably doesn't take too much to make you feel a little on the older side, but the Jonestown massacre in the jungles of Guyana, that happened 46 years ago tonight. 46 years. I was 10. More than 900 members of the so-called People's Temple drank cyanide, and even if you remember all of that as if it were yesterday, I am pretty sure you don't remember the murders that happened afterwards. You might never have even heard of them, but you will when we come back. If you've ever used the expression, he drank the Kool-Aid, you basically accused a guy of going all in on kind of a bad idea. But do you know where the expression came from? 46 years ago tonight, something terrible happened deep in the jungles of Jonestown, Guyana, so horrifying that it would be seared into our collective memories forever. More than 900 church members of the People's Temple followed their leader's orders to forget all about that earthly paradise that he promised them down there, and instead down a Kool-Aid-like drink that was laced with cyanide. It was mass murder in minutes, and it yielded that expression, drank the Kool-Aid. The 1978 Jonestown massacre was no mystery. Jim Jones killed them all except for the ones who got away. But as it turns out, the mystery followed them too, and so did murder, all the way back to America. It's the Jim Jones horror story you may have never heard. With a body count exceeding 900, the Jonestown massacre is one of the most devastating single events in modern history. On November 18th, 1978, the world awakened to a horror deep in the jungles of Guyana. Suicide on a scale impossible to imagine, orchestrated by Jim Jones, the charismatic cult leader of the People's Temple, and the man behind the name Jonestown. A California couple named Elmer and Deanna Myrtle believed they may have lost friends in Jonestown, but the self-destruction of that commune, that was no surprise to them. The Myrtles were members of the People's Temple for 5 years, until they defected and became prominent in the anti-cult movement.
They set out to expose the dangers of mind control and manipulation, and they knew all too well about both of those things, having been drawn in, like so many others, to the message of equality and social change being espoused by Jim Jones. Jones offered a socialist paradise, first in California, and then later, as his followers, his power, and his profile grew in South America, more specifically, Guyana. The Myrtles followed, bringing their 5 children south of the border. But soon, the utopia promised by the People's Temple began to feel like a nightmare. The Myrtles knew something was wrong when Jones refused to give back 3 pieces of property they'd given to the temple to manage. When their daughter was beaten with a board 75 times for, quote, fraternizing with a so-called traitor, their decision was made. They had to get out. But getting out took a whole year, and they had to change their names to make a clean break. Elmer and Deanna Myrtle became Al and Jeannie Mills. Back in California, the Mills family reported Jim Jones to authorities and published a book on life inside the compound. Eventually, other reports, whispers of abuse and cries for help, reached the U.S. and reached the media. Soon enough, an official delegation led by U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan went to investigate Jonestown. Jim Jones met them with smiles and hospitality, but he couldn't hide what was really going on there, and everyone in the delegation could see it. As the group and a few Jonestown defectors tried to head for home, Jim Jones gave the orders, and gunmen opened fire on the American delegation. It happened at the airstrip, right near the plane, and the results were catastrophic. Congressman Ryan was killed, as were 3 journalists and one of the would-be defectors. Soon after that, Jones called a meeting ordering his hundreds of members to commit what he called a, quote, revolutionary suicide by drinking Kool-Aid laced with cyanide. Jones himself decided not to drink the Kool-Aid, and that is in fact where the expression comes from. He took a much less painful way out and chose instead to shoot himself in the head. After the horrors made worldwide headlines, the Mills family were given police protection. They and others believed that Jones had set up a hit squad to kill his enemies. And while the FBI took a look, no one was ever arrested, no one was ever charged. Months went by, and then a year. And in February of 1980, a full year and 3 months after the deaths of 918 people in Jonestown, all hell broke loose at the home of Al and Jeannie Mills on a quiet street in Berkeley. They were shot execution style in their heads. So was their teenage daughter, Daphne. Daphne managed to hang on for 3 days, but ultimately she died from her wounds. Police zeroed in on a suspect who appeared to have zero connection to any purported hit squad. His name was Eddie Mills. He was Al and Jeannie's 17-year-old son. Eddie Mills had been in the home when his parents and his sister were gunned down, but he claimed not to have heard a thing. He tested positive for gunshot residue, but no weapon was ever found. Remarkably, neither Eddie nor anyone else was charged with the murders. But a quarter century later, police did make an arrest. And they arrested Eddie Mills. By then, he was in his 40s and had been living in Japan. They picked him up at San Francisco Airport after his first trip home in years. But again, remarkably, the DA declined to bring charges. So officially, the case of who murdered the Mills family remains unsolved today. But there's no shortage of conspiracy theories. It was Jim Jones enforcers. It was random home invaders. It was even the CIA. Nothing has ever borne out. But one thing is crystal clear. Whoever did this to Al and Jeannie and Daphne Mills, Jonestown survivors and anti-cult activists, they got away with murder 44 years ago. And coming up, 30 years is a long time for anyone to be stuck in one place, let alone be stuck in prison. But for the South Carolina mom convicted of killing her 2 young sons by rolling her car into a lake in 1994 and then crying wolf that a carjacker took those kids, 30 years may not be long enough. So what could stop Susan Smith from walking free this week? We've got his name when we return. Big week for Susan Smith. Biggest week so far, in fact, since she drowned her 2 young sons in a South Carolina lake back in 1994. As you may remember, Smith was sentenced to life in prison, but with the possibility of parole. But that possibility would start after 30 years. And now 30 years is up. Can you believe it? Feels like it was yesterday. But now all that stands between Susan Smith and life on the outside is a 7-person parole board. The verdict doesn't even have to be unanimous. It just has to be a 4-vote majority. So if she's denied again, she actually gets another shot in 2 years. But it is no slam dunk for Susan Smith, the prosecutor who did all that work to put her away. And by the way, the father of those 2 little boys who were murdered by her, they are both set to testify against her. The hearing happens on Wednesday. Brian Enton is there now. He's talking to players in this story. He's going to be on with us tomorrow night to talk to us all about how the mood is going into this very important hearing. Meantime, that's all the time I have for you tonight. I hope everything's going well for you. I'll be right back here again tomorrow. Have a good night. Cuomo starts now.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to NewsNation. I have some food for thought for you on this Monday. Normalizing. You hear that a lot these days, right? That term. Now, first, did you know that the word normal comes from the idea of making things square in carpentry, as in at right angles? It was really a math term, and eventually it got turned into common language as what the standard or expected manner is within a given context. Why am I explaining this? Well, first of all, I didn't really know, but I'm explaining it because it seems that with time,